to A Joy to Be Me, a podcast sharing the magic of minerals, microbes, and a return back to nature's ways. Tune in to learn how to nourish yourself emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. It's time to reconnect with and deepen the fundamentals of human health so we can return to our wild state. I'm your host, Lydia Joy. Let's celebrate this wild ride we call the human experience. Well, hello, my friends. Happy Tuesday, happy January, and happy New Year. This is going to be my first episode of 2025. I'm looking forward to sharing more this calendar year with you. I hope everyone is settling into the new year, recovering from all the hustle and bustle the holidays can potentially bring, and getting into a flow. I've been embracing a lot of reflection as we turned the corner into this new year. I've been deepening my research. I really enjoy researching in the winter. It seems like the perfect time. And I want to dive into a topic today that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people, as I have noticed it's more on the rise, which is really kind of a conversation around chronic health issues. And I want to explore how the complex conditions that come with chronic health issues develop, as well as talk about, which I've talked about a lot, but I want to talk about it again to help you have a better understanding of why I think a different approach, a different healing approach is necessary when we look at complex chronic health issues. A lot of times we may hear this termed as like burnout, chronic fatigue syndrome, adrenal fatigue, right? And those are all just terms for a collection of chronic, like body-wide, system-wide breakdown, if you will. And having navigated my own journey in this, like the long, dark road of chronic health issues, as well as immune compromise myself, I really understand firsthand the significance of creating a very nurturing, safe, stable environment for not just our immune system, but our whole self to get to a point where we can even begin to deeply recover and then thrive. And chronic health issues really, they encompass like such a wide array of conditions. We have autoimmune disorders, that are becoming more and more prevalent. We have gut-related, digestive-related issues that are very chronic. And we could go beyond that, right? So I want to unpack the interplay between burnout, which, as I said, we've heard it termed a certain way, adrenal fatigue. But then now, we're starting to recognize it also as complex trauma, right? We are definitely hearing a lot more about trauma. And so regardless of what term we're using for anything chronic or complex when it comes to health, we need to talk about the concept of cell danger a little bit to shed some light on why many healing modalities often fall short, or at least are not the right first thing to do in this case. And I feel that establishing safety and gentleness is really crucial. It's vital if we want to allow our bodies to reclaim their natural healing abilities. All right. Well, this is what I take a big stand for. One of the most significant hurdles for anyone grappling with chronic health challenges is it's really the psychological conditioning imposed by our modern society that has created a massive, endless growth infrastructure only. Grow, grow, grow. And it has totally ripped us away from that of nature's rhythms and cycles. So that perpetuates this whole I am not enough. I'm not when I don't do enough. So I have to do a lot to have value, if that makes sense, right? So that's just an oversimplification. But this whole not doing enough is kind of like a psychological conditioning of our modern life, right? So we have a fast-paced culture. Many of us feel inadequate, like we can't keep up. The reality is we can't and we shouldn't. Right? And this is a stark contrast to the values of our ancestors who were pre-industry, by the way, who were deeply connected to nature's rhythms and who also took pride in, their own craftsmanship, if you will, their creativity. They didn't live in this grow only vicious cycle. They were not endless consumers. They were creators. They were very deeply connected. And so this shift that we've had over the last 100 plus years towards prioritizing productivity over our well-being really has led us to this pervasive, like, emotional debt, this psychological debt, this burnout that there's no way out if we continue to feel like we have to play in this arena. And so for those with chronic health issues, the pressure to keep up is incredibly crushing. The very act of being told to slow down, to heal, often feels like a slap in the face, or it just feels impossible, or it just feels like almost cruel. You need to slow down. Well, that's a really hard thing to embrace sometimes, right? So because, we may fear the repercussions of our financial and social survival. And our current infrastructure is not designed for our human health. It's failing us in that regard. Right? It's not designed for us, the ones who have to keep it going. It's not for us. Okay. And this leaves individuals deeply struggling to function under the weight of it. And so I just wanted to start out with bringing attention to this because this notion that our value, our worth, being tied to the productivity that is required of us to perpetuate the societal infrastructure system is a very damaging belief. And we really have to collectively move beyond it. It's a huge, long journey I've been navigating myself. It takes a lot of questioning the narratives and deconditioning your own mindset. But it's definitely something I've been working on for a really long time. So I'm here to bring attention to it because I believe it's honestly necessary for anyone who has chronic health issues to at least face that in the eye, right? Because when we examine the root causes of our collective health struggles, it is clear that our shared complex trauma it's really significant and it's happening to all of us. And, I think it's being increasingly acknowledged, which is good, but I don't think it's the sole driver of our issues. Or it shouldn't be, I should say. The symptoms that we experience in light of the infrastructure we've had for so long really arise from our cells being overwhelmed by toxins, deprived of essential nutrients, all while being seemingly trapped in environments that are detrimental to our health. Okay, so the theory around that may seem straightforward, but the practice of recovery is anything but simple. So the roots of our challenges, they run deep. They have been disrupted by a myriad of factors. And to truly address these roots, we need a holistic perspective that recognizes the interconnectedness of our experiences. And from this vantage point, we can embark on, it might be painstaking, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I don't think we need to avoid pain. I think our trying to avoid pain has gotten us in a lot of trouble. Embracing pain and dealing with it properly is better. But so we can actually, have this like hopeful journey of repair, albeit possibly, painstaking, because we want to be able to address each layer and restore balance and health. And I am like so here for that. Now, the good news is, to me, this is good news, I think, because that when we can actually really gain clarity by seeing this kind of like bigger collective picture, it's really helpful, because then we can empower ourselves to move beyond the challenges of where we're at. I think this perspective allows us to collaborate with our body's innate intelligence. We can start to recondition ourselves, our mindset, our neural pathways, and this then facilitates our healing. Because the truth of the matter is our bodies are wise, and they are for us, and they are inherently going to always seek homeostasis. So as we learn what truly supports human health, and the picture of where we're at, we can start to take more sensible, actionable, progressive steps that set us up for greater success in our recovery journey, instead of trying to follow the failing model for the standard of care, which is not care, if we're looking at the allopathic model, that is. So I want to delve deeper into these concepts, uncover some pathways to healing that honor both our bodies and our lived experiences. In my work, I've learned an essential truth: if you fix the cell, you can heal the body. Again, this is that simple, the simple theory, right? But in practice, navigating our modern lifestyles, the environments that we're in, this can certainly feel overwhelming, especially in the beginning. So that's why I want to talk about this key concept in our journey of the cell danger response, especially when we are facing chronic health issues. The cell danger response. I'm going to say that a lot, so I might say CDR for short. But the cell danger response. So this is the natural defense mechanism that kicks in when our cells encounter any kind of threat. It could be a toxin, it could be an infection, it could be anything that, is going to do us harm. Okay? So when our cells sense danger, they enter survival mode. And what does this do? It disrupts their usual functions, and then it creates like a mismatch between their needs and what they're able to provide. So this can lead to changes in our energy usage and our nutrient management. So initially, our body responds out by sending out signals, releasing energy molecules and oxygen to combat the threat. And once the danger passes, it attempts to heal and restore balance. However, if this cell danger response remains active for too long, because there's just too many threats, it can cause widespread issues throughout the body. And this negatively impacts our organs, our gut health, our neurotransmitter production, so therefore our mood. And this is ultimately what leads to the chronic health problems. All right. So I've personally experienced this myself. And I've experienced how my recovery has been able to actually deepen and not just be in kind of like a hamster wheel. Like early on, it was like I would recover and I would crash. I would recover and I would crash. And it almost like I could never get out of that pattern. But when I was able to remove myself from the stressors for an extended period of time, that was when I noticed making massive progress. Now, the cell danger response can also create a memory of past stress. And this is something that I don't think enough people talk about, and it complicates our healing further. So, this is tied to how our cells, particularly their energy centers, the mitochondria, respond to ongoing stress. So, this whole cell danger response isn't just about cell health, it's also going to connect to our environment. The mitochondria, they want to monitor what's happening around them and help regulate this response. But with the increasing number of chemicals in our environment, from industrial products to everyday plastics to all the chemicals in the sky, our bodies are exposed to a growing chemical load in an already nutrient poor state, most of us. So, and we know these chemicals, haven't been tested, yada, yada. We don't even need to talk about any of that. That's a lot of conversations about that. I'm hoping you guys are educated on that. Understanding the cell danger response I feel like it allows us to like rethink how the development of various chronic conditions, including like we're going to call it adrenal fatigue, really have led to all the chronic conditions that people are facing now. It could be digestive issues. We could call it chronic fatigue, serious hormonal imbalances. I had talked about thyroid in a past episode recently to kind of paint this picture for you. Mental health concerns, like some serious mental health concerns, anxiety, depression, apathy, right? So there's a huge list of things that could fall under this. But really, the rise in chronic illnesses over the decades really correlates with the exposure to all these environmental stressors, toxins, and the increasing pressure of trying to keep up in light of it all, right? So by prioritizing safety and gentle healing, we can create a more supportive environment for recovery and truly begin to heal from the inside out. So, and I know it's hard because we can't stop all the chemical exposures, and there's things that we don't have any control over, but there is plenty that we do. And that's where we have to put our focus. And so for me personally, this all happened in several phases. When I was at one of my worst points, this is what really led me to the realization of like, I can't do this way anymore. I really had to realign my life so that I could heal. I had to give myself permission to do things differently than what other people were doing, what society was doing, the conditioning that we have, which is no joke when no one around you is doing it because you don't have the support of others. But nevertheless, that's when I started immersing myself more deeply in the 7 pillars that I'm always talking about. I immersed myself deeply in nature for relief, especially because I was still in an environment that was creating that cell danger response. It wasn't conducive to a full recovery. And that was really hard to accept. And it was even harder because no one else understood what the heck was going on. There were a lot of societal expectations and conditioning that the world around me, would, it wasn't changing its beliefs. So I had to change mine, right? Let's just leave it at that because this is like a very deep, painful conversation for many of us to have, right? But I think you guys get where I'm going. And when I was able to create a better environment for myself, and get out of some very difficult circumstances, my body was able to breathe and started to recover more deeply when I came out of the stressor for long enough. I had to do this in stages because I went through a couple phases where I would get out of one level, but then I was in another element of, a stressor. And then I had to get out of that. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. Like, I've had so many clients say, oh, I got out of this terrible job that I had, but the new job I have is, I have to work at night, or, I have to, different elements of it aren't quite ideal. So they still have to kind of do some hacks within the new environment or the new step, like a step out of and step forward and step towards a more optimal situation, right? So I just wanted to say that, because I feel like people can relate. This isn't linear. I'm not suggesting any of us can just like overnight change our whole lives around. We have to do what we can as we can. So how the body heals after danger? Well, once a threat to our cells is gone, our body naturally begins to heal in two important ways. First, it's going to start to activate a series of processes that like reduce inflammation and help replace damaged cells, which gets our organs back to normal functioning. And at the same time, our body creates kind of memory of the stress that it just experienced, similar to how our brain remembers things. So this memory comes from lasting changes in our cells and their energy centers, the mitochondria, that help them respond to future stress. Okay. Now, if the stress was intense or happened frequently, this memory can sometimes lead to ongoing problems, keeping the body stuck in a state of dysfunction. So this situation occurs because while our body's initial response to danger is helpful, it can become harmful if the threat is no longer present. So this is known as like this mitocellular dysfunction, where our cells struggle to return to a healthy state. Now, in my work with my functional nutrition work with hair tissue mineral analysis, I've observed that chronic health issues often manifest in individuals who have ended up in what's called a catabolic state. The main pattern that this shows up in is called a fast four, or four lows from Adrenal. There's other patterns that are putting you into a catabolic state too, but this is the main one. This state or pattern basically significantly affects every part of your body, and it's something that can develop so gradually that you hardly notice it until it has progressed quite far, to the point where you feel like you're in this chronic health issue pattern situation, if you will. And to be honest, in some cases, many people have been in this state their whole life. And I'm going to talk about this in a future episode. I think it's important to address this, because if you remember what I said at the beginning about how in industry and the leaving nature and this excess toxins has been accruing for the last 100 years or so, you will understand we've been degenerating for a while. So more and more people are finding they're getting these chronic health issues at a younger and younger age, and no one's able to help them get out of it because of the way the world works. And, so I think it's important to get into, but I'll do that in another episode. So a key factor in this process is the dysregulation of what's called the neuroendometabolic stress response. Okay, the NEM. So this response is your body's like global response to stress, and it consists of 6 interconnected circuits. You got the hormones, the bioenergetics, the cardionomic, the neuroaffective, the inflammation and detoxification circuits. Okay, so when any of these circuits are out of balance, it can lead to a catabolic state, which is a long-term condition where your body breaks down your muscle and internal organs. Nobody likes it when I tell them they're in this pattern. No one likes to hear it at all. But this is particularly common in cases of advanced, let's call it adrenal fatigue, chronic health issues, if you've been in that pattern long enough, you are likely in a catabolic state of body chemistry. So with this long-term stress situation, your body's detoxification circuit also might not function properly. I would wager to say a lot of people are not functioning properly these days. And this leads to a congested liver and an increased sensitivity to certain compounds. And because of this, it's like another energy drain. It's another way that the body can be tired because it's not functioning right? So you can become overloaded with the toxins that you're exposed to. So this is just one more exacerbation of this chronic fatigue pattern, if you will. And this is another reason why, if it hasn't been addressed, the catabolic state, we enter it and it becomes much more difficult to get out of, and we have much more serious health considerations to deal with. So when your body enters a catabolic state, you can have muscle wasting, for one thing. You can have muscle wasting. You can have a hard time with energy, with exercise. This is one of the biggest things that I hear. Is like, I try to exercise, but then it just makes me feel worse. So one of the things that I also see too, and this is a piece of it, right? Very frequently in the holistic health space, people are trying to address this poor detoxification situation by detoxing. But this is overdone, even in the mineral balancing space. And if you overdo it without considering your current health, it absolutely can backfire. And I feel like we tend to grab onto a forced plan. Let's hurry up and force the detoxification. Okay, I get it. All right, I see that there's toxins. I see that I'm toxic. I know that I got to detox. But we grab onto this and then we do this like forcing, because why? Our societal infrastructure has taught us produce, perform, but we forget that detoxification is a parasympathetic process, meaning you really can't force it. You have to allow it. And to allow it, this means behaving in a way totally different from what society perpetuates. The problem is we want to hurry up and force detox because we got to get back to living our lives within the infrastructure that's already crushing us and doing all, you know what I'm saying? You get my point here. So that's a really big one I see. And this is why I'm overemphasizing this right now, because we really have to stop doing this, you guys. Another reason for the catabolic state, dehydration. Huge factor. And I'm not just talking about not drinking enough water. I'm talking about not drinking enough of the right water, the water that actually gets into our cells, that becomes a part of us, right? So most of us have been drinking improper water the majority of our lives. So this affects all of us. This is why I talk about water in my 7 pillars. It's one of the big ones that we have to correct. We need some time spent drinking good quality water with at least the minerals, but better, living water, structured water that is the right structure and form to do what it's supposed to do in the body and go where it's supposed to go in the body. Another reason why the body can enter a catabolic state is, muscle injuries, maybe from surgery or a trauma, like I want to talk about TBIs this year, concussions. I had my fall last year. My foot fracture was the minor piece. It was it was the other stuff that went on in the nerve damage. right? So, and then we can start to lose collagen, which is vital for muscle and skin health. So then when we get injured in an already catabolic state, it's way harder to recover from. Chronic liver dis-ease, you know, can really slow your metabolism down. It doesn't even have to be a disease. It could just be chronic liver congestion and lead to a buildup of toxins, causing your body to break down proteins. And then on top of that, we have long-lasting infections that are usually more problematic because the body's already in a weakened state. So we've got things like H. pylori, which is a big one, really big one. A lot of people will have Lyme. There's a whole list of those, right? And these can keep your body in a catabolic state. So, and then of course, modern life, we can't escape the long-term use of medications that have been overused that can really disrupt your body's balance. So that's another one that can lead to this. And then prolonged fasting or severely caloric limiting diets, which we did a lot a while back. I don't know. Are people still doing that? I sure hope not. But prolonged fasting, prolonged low-calorie diets, this can lead to muscle loss as well as chronic stress, inflammation, yada, yada. So one of the big underlying issues is poor nutrient absorption because we have a lot of problems going on in our entire GI, in our entire digestive system. This means that even if you are eating healthy foods and you're really working hard to do that, because I certainly was for a while, your body might not be able to absorb those nutrients properly for a lot of reasons. And, I have a lot of clients who are like trying so hard to be nourished and they can't get nourished to the degree that they want with the foods that they're eating. So it becomes a very complex situation that highlights a lot, right? We definitely have to highlight nutrition and nourishment, but I think we have to do it in a much deeper manner, which is why I've been talking about my 7 pillars so much. So the strategy that I particularly like to use is remineralizing the body with an emphasis on the core minerals that have been depleted during the stressful periods. A lot of people go straight to let's deeply deal with the heavy metals and, let's go deep really fast. And I just don't think in this pattern, the body can handle that. We need to do a very gentle approach to remineralization, especially because most people haven't even drank mineral-rich water their whole lives. So we need a baseline. We need to start replenishing these nutrients to help prevent our entire system from becoming even more exhausted and support the overall recovery process. So please keep in mind that this process is kind of like the best thing I can do here, getting out of bankruptcy. Your gains have to exceed your drains for long enough to pull fully out. Bottom line, that's the simplest way I can say it. So by stopping the drain on your energy reserves, you can start to rebuild over time, right? So resting your body, giving yourself a much needed break, letting go of anything that does not serve your recovery. And I'm not saying you're going to do this overnight. And focusing on only what supports it. This is proven effective in addressing long-term chronic burnout or this catabolic state that I'm talking about, that in HTMA world we know as, we call it the fast 4 or 4 lows. It's not the only pattern, by the way. It's just the main one and the one that I primarily see in my practice. So before understanding this, my recovery, like I said, was often challenging. I wanted to hurry up and get past it. Sometimes you just get tired. So for so many reasons, it's been a very mental, emotional, spiritual journey, which has opened me up to things, honestly, I needed to see so I can make new choices. And I'm not going to lie, albeit challenging, I am really grateful to be where I am now with the perspectives that I have. It has opened me up in the deepest, such a deep manner that I never would have imagined. And now I can help others like myself recover too. So I also have been able to stop a very detrimental cycle or way of being to embrace a much gentler, lovelier path, quite frankly, to teach my children to do the same. And hopefully that will transfer to when they have children. So the next generation can start it out right. Now, as your body starts to repair and to remineralize, you will start to feel less overwhelmed. Then you can focus on the deeper repair work that many times has already been attempted before the body was ready. Getting stable first, getting shored up first is absolutely crucial. Once you are, you will be so much better equipped to do the deeper work. So safety and stability have to come first. And you have to learn over time to recognize the cell danger response memory and come up with strategies and reminders that this is what's going on, so you don't set yourself backwards. All right. So as your levels of important minerals start to increase, we're talking like calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, and this correlates with different organs and glands, and it really shows us that the stress response is changing. You're gonna start to feel less overwhelmed, right? So this is when you're feeling that stability long enough, then you can focus on the deeper mineral balancing work. But at first, it can feel a little bit like riding out a storm, quite frankly. But once you're through it, you will start to feel so much smoother and more energized. So I also want to mention how this catabolic state, this chronic long-term state, leads to a breakdown in your digestion. I've covered this a lot. I've covered this in so many other episodes. I talked about it in Leaky Gut, Microbiome Revolution. Oh gosh, there's one on mineral balancing and stomach acid production. So I have a lot of episodes where I covered this. But it is a piece of the puzzle, whether you have obvious digestive detox gut symptoms or not, like somebody might be like, have IBS or gastritis or something a little bit more obvious that they know there's a digestive component. It's going to be a piece of the puzzle. It's going to be a big piece of the puzzle, right? And it is going to need to be addressed. And this is also where I find many people are going straight to, let me find the toxic thing, or let me find the deep imbalance and let me eradicate it. And again, this is something that is often done too fast, too aggressively, too harsh, without the rebuilding and repair and safety in mind. Okay. So I feel that when we approach the remineralization and the gut health piece in this pattern, we have to do it with the gentleness in mind and the slowness in mind so that we can stabilize and then deepen. All right. So bottom line at this point, if you are in this place in your life where your energy reserves are constantly low and you're either crashing and burning or struggling to stay well, and you have just a lot of chronic symptoms that have been problematic for you, it's really essential to approach a recovery with a gentle lifestyle shift. And even, kind of find more specific nourishment that is going to be tailored specifically to you. So you don't need to go hunting the strict diets. You don't need to go hunting for the strict detox protocols. You don't need to go hunting for the super deep stuff. you you need gentleness. And I've covered that a lot in a lot of ways in past episodes if you want to go back and listen. So, how can we fix the cell to get well? Well, I've said a lot of things, but to support recovery, let's just start with understanding there's some stages that we have to go through, especially when we're addressing this long-term chronic state that leads to being in this catabolic state, right? It's really all about making your body less sensitive to stress, increasing your gains, decreasing your drains, getting into gentleness, nourishment, and safety. So recovering, it should be delicate at first. And it's really important to create the space, to take the time. And honestly, it might be really nice to work with someone who actually understands all of this, quite frankly. So step one, we want to interrupt this pattern so we can put a halt to it. So you really have to halt that catabolic state. And this involves making some lifestyle and diet changes to help replenish your energy and nutrients. Focusing on simplicity, right? Please don't follow some strict, ridiculous diet. Just focus on what foods you can tolerate and eat. Easier to digest foods, soups and stews, and, simple meals. Just keep it really simple. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to have some kind of performance around perfect diet, whatever. I covered this a lot on the podcast as well. I really think it's important to have a healthy relationship with food and try to eat, as locally as you can and in season as you can, and get back to the pleasure of food, right? So that is one thing. Really, if you are somebody who's not sleeping well, that has to be addressed first. If you cannot sleep, you cannot heal. So finding the right stress management practices, supports, sleep habits, starting to get adequate rest, decluttering your life in a way where you can take stuff off your plate because your healing comes first. This is where we start. We interrupt this pattern because we are no longer taking part in what led to our decline. We are going to make different choices, right? So that's step number one. Step number two, once we stopped the decline, now we want to build our metabolism back, get it in balance, start to feed our microbes. If there is gut inflammation and dysbiosis, I do think it's important to know about it so you can do the repair work, but not in a kill-only fashion of the bad guys. We have to look at the whole and start to reconstruct the gut. And sometimes if something's causing big fires in your system, you do have to put it out, but you don't have to put it out aggressively. Okay. So we kind of start to balance it out, kind of like after bankruptcy, you got to take the time to rebuild. You got to get your bank account in better standing, your credit score, coming out of that deep debt. If you've ever been there, it's not a quick fix. I'm just, using this as an analogy because I think we get the idea, right? So this is really where the focusing on my 7 pillars and deeply nourishing comes in. Not deeply. How about I say deepening each of these pillars, right? The 7 pillars. We've got the light exposure piece, getting back in alignment with the circadian rhythm of the human body. We've got water. We've got air and breath. We've got movement. We've got food and nourishment. We've got human connection and community. And then we've got our purpose, right? So those all could be worked on each season, even in small ways, right? For a couple of years until they are habits that you feel mostly good about, even though I can still deepen this. I'm feeling really solid, right? This is a time where you want to be a little more cautious. Your body is still learning to come out of that cell danger, right? The memory, and you want to avoid crashes. So you want to be able to target your dietary nutrition needs, your supplement needs, be a little more specific than haphazard. This is why I love HTMA so, so, so much. It really takes away the guesswork and it gives you clarity on what you need to be doing. This is a good time to assess your gut health. Start building that back better too. I promise you, there's somewhere in your gut that needs shoring up. I promise. It's just a product of living in these times. We all have our work to do. And then finally, when you do find that equilibrium after getting those first two foundations, which are like, they take the most of the time and effort, you now can create like a new path, a new lifestyle. You've got things stabilized, right? You've got your metabolism working better. Your microbiome is working better. This is when you can do the like fine tuning and the tweaking and the optimizing. You should be feeling mostly well, mostly steady energy, mostly not getting sick and staying sick, or avoiding getting sick when everyone else gets sick, right? Like this is the stage where you have created a new way of life that you get to now sustain so that you don't go back into that burnout debt, right? So, ultimately we all want to assess where we're at, right? So, and take it slow, steady. That's the key to successful recovery. I often tell my clients the story of the tortoise and the hare. I don't even have to say any more than that. We all know the story. Which one do you want to be? In retrospect of remembering that story. Society wants us to be the hare, right? So, all right. Well, I've covered a lot about the 7 pillars in past episodes. This is for all of us to rebuild. You can start working on those anytime. But again, your gains need to outweigh your losses for sustained recovery. So that's just like the most simple bottom line. Stopping the drain on your energy reserves. That stops that response, that stops keeping you in that state and helps you to rebuild. So, you really do have to create the time and the space for this and make your health a commitment to get out of the long-term, position of being in chronic health having chronic health issues continually flaring up in your life. Before I understood all of this, my recovery journey was tough. I wasn't patient. I often felt the urge to rush through things or just like skip ahead. I'll be like, this isn't good enough to do the job. I got to do more, right? It really is tempting to think that. And it can be such a mental, emotional, spiritual journey. But for me, that journey opened my eyes to new choices I needed to make anyways. And honestly, like I said, I am so grateful because it really has been, some of the best lessons I've learned. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to say it was easy. But in hindsight, it was a gift. And now the solidity that I have within myself and the trust that I have with my body is just, it's just such a better way to be and live than in fear of like not knowing how to take care of myself, in fear of thinking the worst, in fear of, all the things, right? So now, I can help others navigate the same waters with the support that I personally did not have on my path. So as your body begins to repair and mineralize, you're going to feel less overwhelmed, and that is going to feel wonderful. And then you can focus on the deeper repair work that you might have attempted before your body was ready and it didn't work so good. So, so this is great in the grand scheme when we can actually settle into the process. So I feel like it also helps us to stop chasing, to stop the vicious cycle of treating, like playing whack-a-mole with all our symptoms, right? Trying to fix them in a one-off manner, and instead of really just looking at ourselves as a whole and our environment as a whole and just working with that, right? We don't have to waste so much time and, scattered energy on like attempting to stab at this, that, and the other, follow this protocol, that diet, blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, I hope you found this helpful. I'm hoping I brought some clarity to you with this conversation. Hope you found it eye-opening. Maybe you find yourself in this pattern and you want more help on your journey. This is kind of the niche, if you will, that I am in, and the type of people that I help, both for lay people as well as practitioners. So I do help burned out women and their families to kind of work through this, to get back to a more optimal health and vitality. And this is the approach that I take. I use a gentle, nature-based approach that helps those chronic challenges turn around into renewed energy and resilience. And as I mentioned recently, that I was going to be opening up my practitioner mentorship because I have since closed down my HTMA Practitioner Jumpstart course, and decided that mentorship is really where I feel my strength lies to kind of deepen this body of work. I also do help holistic practitioners looking to do this, right? They want to deepen their work with mineral balancing with HTMA to support their clients who are also struggling to recover from chronic health issues. And so my application is now ready for you to fill out if you're interested. It's a 9-month mentorship. The link is in the show notes for you. And basically just go check it out. And then you'll fill out an application if it sounds good to you. And we will get on the phone, have a conversation, and make sure that this is really what you need and what I can deliver for you. So if that's you, definitely go check that out. It's been something that I've been sitting with for quite some time, and finally ready to release into the world. And I only have limited space for this because I really am still focusing on my client practice. So this year I'm only going to have a few spots to take this on. So if that is you and you're interested, no pressure at all, but just keep that in mind. Jump on it if you want to, if timing is right for you, if you have the space for it, because I don't know how many times I'll be able to run this year. Right now, I'm starting out with just a couple spots, and we'll revisit as I get through the year and see where if there's more space for more. So, all right, guys. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for being here and tuning in, and I hope you gained something from your time listening to me today. Until next time, stay wild and stay well.